Hey guys, Tarke here. Now, I'm going to do my best not to get too whiny in this video, because there's a lot of stuff in here that I fundamentally disagree with, and there are some things that I think are just net negatives for the game. Before I get into specific stuff, I just need to say off the start, the chance for items to drop perfect, like a 0 to 10% better defensive roll, shouldn't go into the game. If you take anything away from this video, for anyone who watches this at GGG, please double think that. I understand why you think it may be interesting. I can understand why you think it may be fun, but keep in mind how much we meme Diablo 3 for ancient items. This is basically a lesser ancient items, which with the doubling down of the core defenses of armor, evasion, and energy shield, you're making soft ancient items, and it's just going to lead to a lot of negative feedback loops. There's currently a big issue in Path of Exile where players feel like they only care about the base items that drop, and they don't care about just like actual loot. And I can understand this could be another way to make players really care about the base. Like you get excited that, oh, I got a 10% Astral. Cool. What's actually going to happen is you get an eye level 86 influenced Astral drop, which isn't 10% more armor, and you're like, that's trash now. Or you're farming a boss for a specific unique item, you kill it 50 times, no drops. You kill it 100 times. Finally, the unique drops, and it didn't have that 10% value on it. It's going to feel bad. It's going to lead to negatives for the average player. The average trade league player will suffer. If you're made of money and all you do is trade 24/7, all you do is craft 24/7 in trade league, it won't affect you at all. Your build will just be better. You're just buffing the top end, and it's going to be a very negative player experience for the middling players, and it's an awful experience for anyone who plays in SSF. You shouldn't balance the game around SSF, but I'm telling you, this will just make players feel bad. It will be more of a situation of I feel bad that my thing dropped without this value than I feel good that I got a slightly better helmet or a slightly better pair of boots. Please reconsider that. That one single change, if it goes through, makes me question the development of Path of Exile. And it might seem like a really small thing to be that concerned about, but the actual, like, what I think the actual result of that going through to the game is massive. And I really hope that it doesn't go that way. And if it does go that way, then I've never been so against a change in PoE's history. Yeah. So, with that out of the way, I also, sorry, with that out of the way, I also want to say I haven't done any alpha testing with any of these new changes, so sometimes when I make videos pre-league, people are like, oh, he's saying this because of alpha or whatever. No. So this is just based on my reactions, based on the information that is provided here, based on conversations I've had in the past with GGG developers on stuff like Bayclast, and conversations I've had with other content creators and just intelligent players, most of those intelligent players not being content creators. Okay. Let's get into it. Finally, as the last caveat, I'm going to focus specifically on the evasion-based stuff because I'm someone who just plays a lot of right side of tree evasion builds, and I've always invested heavily into my evasion builds. I've always been someone who's... I used to play hardcore for years and years. I then made the swap to softcore, but I still made my softcore builds with a hardcore mentality. I like to layer my defenses. I like to invest into my defenses. I wouldn't just like, oh, acrobatics, I'm done. From that point of view, I only see negatives from the changes to evasion, spell suppression, wind dancer, the dodge, the Valgrace. All of those builds are just significantly worse. Every single build pretty much I've played for the last 2 years is just worse going into 3.16. I do think there are some interesting build options when it comes to mixed defense characters. So be it armor evasion, armor ES, or evasion ES. I think there are some interesting options there. Unless something gets changed or unless something new comes in, I will never play a pure evasion character again. Pure evasion characters are just bad in my opinion now. The only way you've benefited from an evasion point of view is if you're someone who never invested into your defense. If you just happen to have some evasion on gear and you just happen to take acro, phase acro, yeah, your builds might feel better now. But I don't think that I don't think GGG should be rewarding players who didn't invest into their defense and hurting players who did invest into their defense. I think that's a very backwards way of going about things. And I think specific attention needs to be given to spell-based evasion characters because they have lost the most out of anyone from all of these changes through the changes to blind and the changes to fortify. So let's kind of get into some specific stuff now. So here they talk about the changes to dodge blind, and they talk about the armor stuff. So boom, this is all the armor values. Basically, armor is worth twice as much now, which on paper sounds excellent. It is worth considering that pre-315, you could get 100% iron skin granite flasks. So I don't know how much better like average investment armor builds will feel in 316 compared to 314. If it will feel significantly stronger or just about the same if you were running like pre-nerf iron skin granites with a little bit of armor investment on your gear. But the armor changes I'm generally in favor of. I guess I should also mention it now since determination and discipline will come up. I'm actually against the determination and the grace changes. So I've made a few videos talk about how I feel like we need more interesting defensive options when it comes to auras. I've specifically mentioned determination, I've specifically mentioned grace in the past, and I've also been a big advocate for having more auras in the game in the 10% to 35% range. We're missing the context of the next post, which is going to be focusing on aura stacking. So I imagine also aura reservation. So it's hard to really evaluate, but just without that context, I'm going to say I would much rather see more interesting tools in the 10 to 35% range than just doubling down on determination grace being 50% auras, because specifically with some of the mana changes from last league, what are you going to do? Run a 50% damage aura, a 50% defense aura in every single build, then just have to run like, what, 15% mana reservation, so you have some unreserved, then running like mana flasks and stuff? I don't really know. Do you have enough damage on most builds that you can go with a 50% defense aura and then like a 25% damage aura? I don't know. I'm not that confident about that. I really like the idea of it. I also really like the idea of doing... again, as I said, mixed defense builds, maybe even running determination and grace, going super, super tanky. Could be very interesting. Whether you'll actually be able to get away with that, I don't know. Also worth keeping in mind that we have stuff like Period of Elements, which is a 50% now. There's two ways of looking at it. You could be like, well, by having more impactful 50% auras, you have more meaningful choices, because each choice has more weight to it. I would rather have more options in the 10 to 35% range, and you get to mix and match a lot more, because what will probably end up happening is someone will run a bunch of maths, or like one content creator will make a guide, and 90% of the players will just copy the one exact setup, whereas I feel like players are more likely to experiment when they can mix and match more. So yeah, not mad for that. Also, finally on this point, it is worth considering, GGG's done an excellent job of stripping raw physical mitigation out of the game over the last however many years, which makes this armor stuff kind of interesting, but is also a further reason why evasion characters, which we'll talk about later, feel so much worse, and will feel so much worse if the stuff goes ahead as planned. So they talk about what's going on here, like, oh, evasion characters only relied on acro, they only relied on phase acro, blah, 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 remove dodge. So evasion and dodge are similar, but evasion and dodge are different. It's worth keeping in mind that evasion is an entropy-based system. I'm going to simplify everything a crazy amount just so it kind of makes sense. Let's say your character has a fixed evasion value. Let's say the enemy you're attacking has a fixed accuracy value. Some dice gets rolled in the background, and it's basically every 5th hit will definitely hit you. It's an entropy-based system, so it's not random. It's not like pure random. Dodge was pure RNG. So dodge was an amazing way to stagger your entropy. If you know that every 5th hit is definitely going to hit you, then you're going to get hit. 1 in 5 attacks. But if you suddenly then have dodge rolling in the background, that 1 in 5 might become a 1 in 10. And just losing that dodge makes the entry system of evasion significantly worse. And again, if you were playing your evasion characters correctly, you were investing to be near evasion cap or at evasion cap, especially if you're playing a raider. So it being easy to get evasion cap now, which is 95%, it doesn't really matter. And you're like, yes, but Tarke, now you don't need to invest into evasion nodes on the skill tree. Well, you do, because you need to invest them to get the spell suppression thing. So it's not like you're gaining skill points, and those builds already took all the available life nodes. So it's not like they can just get an extra like 10 life points. So it's rough. It's rough. So it's easier to get evasion cap. Cool. This is mostly good for builds which aren't evasion builds. This is good for armor builds with a bit of evasion, or ES builds with a bit of evasion. Pure evasion is bad. So the spell suppression thing, when I first read this, I'm like, oh, this seems really interesting. But then I saw the Wind Dancer change, and then I saw the change they're doing to acrobatics, so the whole spell dodge thing. And now I'm really against spell suppression. Spell suppression could have been a really cool tool. What I would have done is I would have nerfed Val Grace, I would have nerfed dodge, I would have nerfed spell dodge, but had them still exist, and then had spell suppression as like another thing. Depending on how this works, the way I read this, it's an option. You either have spell suppression or you have spell dodge. There's no getting a combination of the two. It's just bad. So, spell suppression is this new thing. It's added to certain passives in the evasion area. We don't know what the passives are. Hard to evaluate. They'll just be on some nodes which give evasion. Cool, I guess. You can also get it on some gear. Cool. There's a new node which gives Dexterity no longer gives inherent evasion, and that gives 1% chance to suppress spell damage. You can get 100% chance to suppress spell damage. If you have a 100% chance to suppress spell damage, 100% of the spell damage you take is halved. Think of it like glancing blows. Sounds really good. Well, you haven't got any form of physical mitigation. Well, yeah, you do. You can run Wind Dance or Aspect of the Crab or Endurance Charges or get generic physical... Oh, they've got rid of all the generic physical mitigation. Oh, but you could run a Basalt Flask. Oh, they got rid of that. That's now an armor thing. So you can now run armor plus evasion. One thing which I think could be cool from this is if you're doing pure evasion, Iron Reflex. So, like, you get all the evasion nodes you get with spell suppression, and then you convert all of your evasion into armor. So that could be good. But again, it's like, that's not really a pure evasion. Like, pure evasion just feels trash. Iron Skin will be really good. Mixed armor evasion will be good with, like, some spell suppression. Some ES builds with some spell suppression, cool. But it's like, what is pure evasion getting? Like, nothing. Okay, so. Elusive now just gives chance to avoid damage from hits. Okay, sure. Wind Dancer is now only for attacks. So I basically never take Wind Dancer because, like, if you have evasion cap, you don't care about attacks. So now you just evade the attacks harder. Okay, so it now gives less attack damage taken if you haven't been hit by attack recently, and more evasion rating and attack damage taken if you've been hit. Why would I want this? I can get evasion cap anyway, because it's easier to get evasion cap now with the changes. So if I have evasion cap, I don't need to invest further into evading attacks. And then I have evasion cap, I get hit, I now gain more evasion rating, which does nothing because I have evasion cap. And then I take more attack damage. No, it's bad. And it does nothing to spells, which is a problem because what do evasion builds do versus physical spells? Because they can't mitigate it with Wind Dancer. They've got Kintsugi. Kintsugi is a really cool item. Kintsugi was very powerful when added on with a bunch of other effects. But, like, it's been falling behind compared to influence items for a long time now. And, yeah. And you're like, but Tarke, you just run Aspect of the Crab. So Aspect of the Crab gives you a stacking buff every second. You gain physical mitigation, and then when you get hit, you lose all your charges. But with spell suppression, you always get hit by spells, so you lose all your charges on the first hit, so then you have no charges for the subsequent hit. So if you're against, like, a Blade Vortex or a Blade Fall, or just, like, any kind of rapid physical spell, you're just going to get deleted. And you're like, yeah, but then, Tarke, you just invest into endurance charges. Like, all right, cool. Where are all the endurance charges? They're on the left side of the tree. You can maybe get one endurance charge in Duelist. So you've got 4 endurance charges, but you don't have Basalt Flask. You don't have Wind Dancer. They got rid of all the generic damage reduction on the tree. They got rid of all the generic physical damage reduction. Like, you just die to fizz spells. Like, it's just bad. Like, it's straight up, like, pure evasion is just straight up bad. I know I'm repeating myself, but it's like, it's just bad. Okay, but like, oh, but fine, because it's acrobatics, dude, so you can convert your spell suppression. So, the way I read this is anything to spell suppression instead gives you spell damage 50% of its value. I don't see this as like you get spell suppression and spell dodge. If you get both, that's pretty strong, but I think it's one or the other. So in that case, you have evade cap, you then get like 100% spell suppression on the tree, which take quite a lot of investment, and then you get 50% spell dodge. So compared to like a live evasion character, you've got less spell dodge because you've lost spell dodge from Vile Grace, and Vile Grace is always up in dangerous scenarios because it lasted so long. And just like being a raider plus its zero step is basically, it's like what, 46% spell dodge anyway, so it's like, well, the same thing, right? So you've got like the same amount of spell dodge or less. You have no dodge and no fortify if you're not an attack based build because they've changed how fortify works. No Wind Dancer. No Basalt Flask. Lit. Also, for the record, I would rename this to Phase Acro because phasing makes more sense with the whole spell thing. Okay. So the evasion stuff is just bad. This stuff, cool, I guess. Whatever. They're adding max Ellie res to parts of the skill tree. We don't know, so I can't say how good this is, but this is maybe decent. Sure. The energy shield stuff here, I generally agree with. But there's this new perfect quality thing, which is kind of factored into this, which I hate. So ignoring that bit, I agree with like this stuff, but like that, yeah. Also, it's going to be harder to 6-link items now because you can't base the quality, like stack a bunch of quality on an item, so 6-linking will be harder, so hopefully they readjust those values. So yeah, this is the thing that I hate. Yeah. I like that energy shield is focusing back on regen. I've always liked regen energy shield builds. Cool. This ghost dance thing, okay, so like I'm not against it going on the skill tree, but you haven't told us what you're doing to Trickster. So not only are you like really hurting pure evasion builds, you're also significantly changing Raider, Trickster, and Saboteur, 3 of the most evasion-heavy ascendancies, and we're missing a lot of context. So we might be getting new tools for those ascendancies, but I can't tell you if I think the changes are good or not because we don't have any of the context, which is why I get frustrated because it's like, hey, we're giving you this stuff so you guys can give us feedback so we can make it good, but we don't give you all of the stuff because we're holding stuff back because we probably haven't decided. And this is the problem you run into because stuff doesn't get decided till like the day before the league launches, and that's when stuff launches either ridiculously overpowered or ridiculously undertuned. It's bad. We don't know. Like, this is excellent for just any generic ES build though. Yeah, this stuff really frustrates me. Really like the mixed armor ES stuff. I think this is positive. Again, mixed defense builds I think really benefited from this. The life regeneration changes, we don't know the values, but I think I'm for them. This dot thing I think is interesting. I think it's kind of neat. This is more of the life regen stuff. Also, they're adding some interesting new nodes for Witch and Shadow, which give life recovery. We don't know the values of it, but I'm not against the idea. There's life gain on hit, which is very, very, very powerful. So I'm curious to see what the values on that will be. Gladiator got some changes. I'm not against the ideas, but we kind of need the context of where is stuff going to be on the skill tree, how much they're buffing things by. We don't really know, like, yeah. I've seen some interesting points of view on the shield thing. I've actually seen some softcore players, like softcore trade league players, complaining that they're removing a bunch of like generic damage from shields. It's also worth noting that with the changes to Fortify only being for attack builds, and they're kind of trying to kill Fortify from spellcasters, then spellcasters are way less likely to run a shield anyway, so they're incentivized to go dual wield for more damage, and these changes will just further incentivize them to go dual wield for damage. So yeah, probably expect to see more dual wield caster builds in softcore. In hardcore, having more interesting defensive options is good. So the shield change, I'm kind of personally, I'm okay with. The blind thing. So they've changed blind. Blind was really powerful. I agree it was really powerful. Now it has an offensive component, but it's only an offensive component for attack-based builds. So, Saboteur, by the way. All the spellcasters, by the way. Or, like, Caustic Arrow. Toxic Rain. Lit. Tempest Shield. Okay, so Tempest Shield's now 25% reservation. Cool, I'm actually in favor of this. It gives a large amount of spell block. Not cool. I don't know what a large amount is. If it gives at least 25% spell block, I would consider it. Anything less than 25% spell block, I probably wouldn't consider it. 25% spell block and immunity to shock, I think is worth 25% reservation. If it gave like 30%, 35%, then it's very, very attractive. 25% I feel is kind of like a break point. 20% possibly. Anything under 20%, I don't think I would run it. They've said they're significantly buff the damage. Well, if you want to play a pure Tempest Shield build, you then need to factor in support costs, and like this is the one thing which is kind of sad about this is that there were like Tempest Shield builds where you'd rapidly turn on Tempest Shield, like Orb of Storms and stuff. Those builds just got deleted by this change. So that kind of sucks. Yeah. Yeah, we don't know the value, so I can't really evaluate it. Flesh and Stone at 25%. Yeah, it's fine. And then the Fortify change. So the Fortify change, again, I think is good for attack-based builds. I think it was dumb how many other builds got access to it. That being said, people are weird about what constitutes as melee or not. For example, if you're like a Cyclone Castle channeling summoner, and you're literally cycloning through the middle of every pack, you're in melee range. Yeah, you're summoning minions, but like that's a melee build. That's arguably more of a melee build than Lacerate or something. Like people have this like really weird like is it melee? It's not true melee. Earthquake isn't melee. It's only melee if it's heavy strike. Or like all this rubbish. But like I personally would have just deleted Fortify from the game completely and just added a bunch of interesting new tools to the game. I'm not really seeing... I'm seeing a lack of new tools. I'm seeing a lot of cool recovery options. I'm seeing a lot of defenses get doubled down upon. I'm seeing evasion get basically trashed of pure evasion builds. But I was hoping to be getting more interesting new tools, and I feel like, yeah, considering that this was marketed as like a bunch of like sweeping buffs, it's like, I mean, is it? There's going to be some really cool mixed defense builds, which I've said a lot, and I'm excited for some mixed defense builds, but I'm never going to play a pure evasion build again. And that also means that based on the routing and the skill tree, I might never play certain archetypes again. Like I might just never play chaos.bows again. Because it can be kind of difficult to go for like the mixed investments, and it's literally just like I just add Iron Skin to like all of my builds, which I guess for the like points I'll save from Acro Phase Acro I could probably do. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's a really mixed bag. The real thing to focus on is that the chance, like the chance that you get Ivar Regalia with 20% more ES on it, like, ugh, that's really bad. It's really, really bad. I really want to have a conversation with... Again, this isn't meant to be like an attacking of anyone, and like I can understand the thought process, and I can understand how they came to a lot of these like endpoints. But I would love to be part of that conversation, because I imagine that if I feel this conflicted, then I imagine there's a lot of conflict in office. Again, this is speculation. I don't know anything. It feels weird. Like, it feels weird to me if, like, a team of 5 devs got behind this and was like, yep, that's good. Or like, yeah, we don't think ancient items could be bad for this game. Like, that seems weird. So, I don't know. Actual concern, I'm hoping a lot of this will change. All this is subject to change. I've already passed on my feedback to GG directly. I haven't had any feedback on my feedback. Let me know what you guys think. I'm Tarke. Have a good day. Very nervous for part 3, by the way. Bye-bye.